About how to get teams into that zone. And a really good example of this is a manufacturing company that we recently worked with. And this company, we had just put in an ERP system, and they were going through the typical sort of cycle that you go through when you make a really big change like that. So they were disillusioned, they were anxious, they didn't like the fact that things had changed on them. And they were angry. And when people are in that sort of state, what they're really dealing with, when they're dealing with change like that, they're dealing with a fear. They're dealing with the possibility that they may not be able to be competent with this new system. They knew how to be competent in the past. Now it's totally different for them. They're fearful about being able to be competent in the future. And so what we did is essentially emotional self-management. We taught them coherence techniques, which at their heart are emotional self-management techniques. And so we taught them not only what we just did as far as helping you guys get into a state of coherence, we also taught them how to be aware of when they needed to make that shift into coherence, and also taught them how to help each other make that shift. And it made a huge impact on this particular team. It usually takes teams quite a while to make it through that stage of acceptance into a new system, new practices. They made that jump a lot more rapidly. And there's been a lot of research done on this. And one of the things that these techniques do for you is they help put you in a state where you have access to more of your natural, innate confidence. And there's been a lot of research done, like before and after sort of surveying of groups when they use these techniques, and they find that they have a lot less anxiety, a lot more confidence in what they're doing. Yes. If you've ever been through a large change initiative and you've had a change management expert help you through that, and let's say you were the leader on a team that was going through that, what would that change management expert typically say is most important for you to do as a leader to help the team through that?
Communicate.
Sorry?
Communicate often.
Communicate. And I'm looking for more specifically what they want you to communicate.
Stay positive, perhaps.
Positive and support for the change.
Yeah. Okay, you're onto it.
Acknowledge that it's difficult.
Acknowledge that it's difficult, yeah. But what I was really looking for was what you're saying, support for the change. So basically they tell you, if you're having a team that's having a hard time going through that cycle and accepting the change, then communicate constantly about why you're doing this, why it's important, why we had to do it. And if you think about that for a minute, what you're really doing is you're saying these people have a fear. That's what's causing their problem. And you're trying to combat fear with logic. And that's what's different about these techniques. It says that the best way to deal with emotion, the best way to deal with fear, is directly with the emotion itself, not through cognition, not through logical thinking, trying to convince them of something, but through the emotional route directly is much more effective. So that's the heart of what we're talking about here. And another really good example of that is burnout. So burnout is basically an emotional issue. So it's when we all have a certain seeking emotional system in ourselves that drives us, that motivates us to attain in the world. Burnout is when that particular emotional system is in some way inhibited, in some way not as sharp as it typically is. And there are 4 great things that you can do for burnout in a person, in a team. They are deep laughter, they are breathing techniques, spontaneous play, and rhythms. So natural body sort of music, dance rhythms. And I actually know a project manager who has a stand-up meeting every morning, and he chooses one of those 4 mechanisms, gets his team involved in that. He chooses one of those 4 mechanisms, he uses it in his team to help energize them for the day. Now if you think about it, typically if we're trying to get people to have greater motivation to do something, have a greater drive, what do? And the PMBOK even says this is what you should do. Hey, can you guys know what I'm thinking of? Reward system. They talk about reward system. So you put a carrot out here. You say, okay, if you do this thing, if you get motivated and do this, there's a carrot out here for you. And if that doesn't work, then you might get a stick or something, and there's a threat essentially. But those are cognitive things. Okay, so those are you're working on that person from a logical standpoint to get them to have that drive. And again, what we're saying here is go directly to the emotional issue. Much more effective.